Amidst the vast quantity of cathode ray tube monitors that are within my holding, there remains one monitor that has managed to preserve its youth as if it were immortal. Every CRT I know has been to a bar. Well, at least once or twice. This one, however, has always been rejected from bars. It simply isn't old enough to drink, I guess. Well, that's not all bad. They say the best time of your life is when you are young, after all. Who's to judge this CRT when it's currently in its prime? Well, like a lot of youngsters, it found itself in a situation where all hope seemed lost. It was stuck. It was in a place where the only way to taste freedom was accepting the omnipotent power of oblivion. Well, once again, like a lot of youngsters, it was rebellious. It stuck out. It decided to stick with it and see what the future would have in store. Luckily, for this CRT, that would be the smartest decision of its life. On one fateful day, someone would come in, recklessly curious about what they could find at a recycling center.
Oh shit, is that a BVM? Wait, what the f is an HDM? I mean, I guess I'll take it.
This is the Sony HDM-20E1U.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Sony HDM-20E1U. Ooh! This is a monitor that I'm a huge fan of, specifically because of the look of it. The fact that this thing is such a low hour set, you watch the intro, you know what the fucking... This is one of, if not the most vibrant CRTs I have ever seen, period. Now, if you know the professional CRT realm a little bit, you might be confused by the name of this because you might be familiar with the Sony BVM-20E1U. So HDM is HDVS master monitor. BVM is broadcast video monitor. What does that translate to? Well, basically all you gotta know is that the HDM is not 15 kilohertz. It's only 31 kilohertz and 33 kilohertz. No. There's no in between. So in other words, you can only do 480p or 1080i. Now there are some technical things in between where you could do some timing fuckery and do 540p or 360p, but shut the fuck up. For simplicity's sake, 1080i or 480p. So that's in contrast to the BVM-20E1U that is going to only be 15 kilohertz. Anyways, let's get to the specifications, shall we?
We have a horizontal frequency of 31 kilohertz and 34 kilohertz, a vertical frequency of
50 hertz to 60 hertz.
No in between, though, even though I worded it like that. This is a comma, not a dash. And then a TV line count of 850 TV lines, so it doesn't look like if you put it 90 degrees sideways that there's a fucking man behind your TV. Arrested, in jail, and it has a size of 20 inches, 19 inches viewable. weight of 83 pounds or 38 kilograms. And, we'll talk about the inputs in just a minute. There's some stuff to go into there.
Yeah, so about the input stuff. Luckily on this monitor, you have a RGB dash component input built into it. It's not like a removable video card or anything. Like, it's like a dedicated video processor. And it also has outputs if you want to daisy chain it to like a different monitor or something of the sort. So that's good. Thing is, that's your only way, assuming you don't have a video card, to hook things into this. So you have a bunch of different slots in this monitor, and the amount of slots that you have for video inputs is 4. So if you find something like a BKM129X, you can add more RGB- component inputs on there. So it's a little bit complicated because you can kind of just make your own input setup for this monitor. There's plenty of monitors that Sony made that do that. Plenty of BVMs and PVMs, etc. Now, I only have this video processor and that's it. I don't have any other, like, extra video input cards. And I honestly am not worried about that because of the fact that I have an Extron Crosspoint. And I'm sure that as I am actively showing footage of an Extron Crosspoint on this video, that you're probably thinking of the fucking eBay prices skyrocketing. I'm sorry. I know. But I gotta show it. I gotta show the setup. But yeah, basically with this, I have like an infinite amount of inputs and outputs. I don't need to worry about it. As long as the monitor can take one thing in, I don't give a fuck. Now you can also take out like the deflection board and the power supply and stuff, which is pretty cool. Like those are kind of input cards in of their own. So it's pretty serviceable if you ever pick this monitor up and it turns out that like a capacitor on the power supply was dying and it wasn't turning on or whatever. That's about it as far as the specs are concerned. There are some other things that I can go over as well, but I'm going to save those for one of the upcoming chapters, which will be like the features. Because there's actually some stuff I should get into regarding that. But before that, I'm going to go over a brief history on how I obtained the monitor. Now, it's not a crazy convoluted story like the Dell P1110 or the Siemens monitor or like whatever the hell, but I do think it is worth going into even for just a brief moment. So this one was a pretty nice success story. And it started off just like any other day with me trying to like go to recycling centers and just see what I can find there. And as of this day, I actually have a pretty tight connection with the guy that I got this from, who was like one of the head guys of the recycling center that I got this thing from. So I drove pretty far out, met this guy, had him show me around, and a couple things caught my eye. One of them was a Dell P1130, which was pretty nice. Only thing is, it was physically bashed to shit. The bezel was completely snapped in half. It sucks. Probably one of the main reasons why I don't use it, despite being better than the P1110 when it comes to like the chassis, dynamic conversions, a little bit of horizontal frequency and vertical frequency, but you know that shit doesn't matter if you watch the P1110 video. That doesn't fucking matter. But anyways, one of the other things I noticed was what I thought was a Sony BVM, and upon us testing it, it seemed to have worked. It seemed to have turned on. We didn't really have anything to plug into it. I probably should have brought something to plug into it. And it also didn't have any OSD controls. More on that later. We also noticed by looking at the back that it wasn't a BVM, it was an HDM. And after doing a quick Google search on what that meant, I was like, alright, yeah, I'll take it. And so he helped me load it into my car. God bless him, because this building that we were in is pretty high up. So that's what this footage that you have seen multiple times shows. It was us going down the elevator. Big shout out to him. I'm not going to name him due to privacy and all that type of stuff, but he knows who he is. I appreciate you. Anyways, this thing sat for a while in my storage while I prepped like a PVM console setup thing, which this video happens to be showing for the first time. I'm going to make a video on that and everything, but first I thought I'd get into the monitors that are on there. You might have noticed the other one. If you got a keen eye, you might know which one that is. But that's not what this video is about. And upon checking the hours for this thing, I saw that it was basically unused, which had me collectively shit my pants and send it to literally everybody I know, freaking out. I'm adding this in post. By that I mean photos of the hours, not my like actual shit. I worded it very poorly there. Please believe me. And that's pretty much all there is. I didn't have to really do any maintenance on this thing, and I know why that is now. Didn't even have a week of use when I first got it. Not even 7 full days of use. And so with that out of the way, it's time for the features of the monitor. So this upcoming chapter is going to be pretty beefy. And I'm going to go over stuff like the OSD, the controller, and other little specifics like 16:9 being locked to 1080i, which you're probably thinking, huh, what? So yeah, I'll show you what I'm talking about there. Alright, time for some stuff. First thing I'm going to be talking about is the aspect ratio of this monitor. It's 4:3, right? Well, now look, now it's 16:9. Whoa! One of the things that some Sony monitors had is the ability to put on a mask that masks off the aspect ratio to make a different one. In the case of this monitor, I've got a 16:9 mask, so it's just a thing that I slap on the front, and it makes it look like the monitor is 16:9. And it's pretty easy to put on. On the top and bottom of the bezels, you have these little holes here, and all you gotta do is just fit them in the holes, pull it up, and then slap it in those holes, and you're done. Just clicks right in. Taking it out is honestly just as easy, if not easier. You just get your hand in here on the side, then you give it a pull. Oh. It's kind of cool because not having the actual tube black bars show when you letterbox does make a mental difference. Like, it does feel like you are using a 16:9 CRT, but like you're not. Admittedly, it does help crop 16:9 aspect ratios properly, so you know for a fact that they're not stretched out. That is one thing that I really like about it, like as like an actual conventional thing. But it really just is a novelty to put it on there. It's cool. I like it. I do use it when I am doing 16:9 on it, so it isn't useless for my use case. There is like a 4:3 mask that you can get as well, but like, why would I use that? Now about that OSD button situation, in order to use the OSD, or like anything for that matter in terms of just the controls for this monitor, you need a control unit. These things connected through serial. Control units such as like the BKM10R or the BKM11R gave you knobs and buttons to use as if the monitor had them built in normally, like the majority of PVMs and BVMs. Now, some monitors, like the Sony BVM-D24, to just name like an example, would require a control unit like these. I was fortunate enough to find a BKM10R for a decent price. It wasn't too bad. This is more ideal for me because of the fact that it makes the monitor look a little bit more whole, because the monitor's feet actually step right into it. So it really just looks like it's a part of the monitor. Then I've just got a serial cable going from that into the back of the monitor where there's the control unit input, and just like that, you're able to use all these things for the monitor. And you actually get a power button. Can you fucking believe that? You get a power button! Alright, we're gonna get into the OSD because I believe that there's some stuff that we should cover here. I'm not gonna do everything head to toe, it's gonna be a very brief thing, and I'm just gonna be showing the things that I think are relevant and pretty important and good to know. So starting off with the menu button here, it pulls this thing up. We got all these options going on here. Now going to the first one, we have these presets. We can change the channel presets here, and the channels are pretty much just presets of their own. So you just have like a million different presets, maybe if there's one that you think is good for using your Wii on versus using your PC on or something like that when it comes to the color calibration and the way you have the resolution scanned. Whatever it may be, it can be saved in these. Of course, with this being a professional grade monitor, you can adjust your color temperature and have a couple different presets for those as well. I did not do that, and I'm not going to do that because I think you know why. But anyways, setup is what you're to spend the most of your time in with these, and you get these options in that menu. Input config allows you to change YPBPR versus RGB, so that's going to depend on the setup that you have. You can change your sync mode here to internal or external. That doesn't really make much sense because you just have the button over there. For the screen mode, we'll talk more about that when it comes to 1080i, but here's what you get when you have a resolution such as 480p put in. You got underscan, normal, and you can even set it to 16:9 if the content could benefit from it, or I don't know. Can turn on aperture, and you got some other settings down here, and you can also copy. In system config, you have a couple of extra settings that I thought I'd show. I don't really have anything to say about them though. This you'll probably be spending the most time in because this is where your geometry adjustments lie. Now I'm only going to show an example of the horizontal phase, but here's what you can do. You can use the buttons here for the OSD to adjust it up and down, and you can press enter to save your adjustment that you've made to that setting, or you can just press the menu button again to revert it back to what it previously was, which is very good if you think you fucked up. Now one of the other things you can do when it comes to the adjustments is that if you don't want to use the buttons because it's a pain in the ass, you just use the closest knob to the buttons, and that allows you to adjust them. So I just do that 99% of the time unless I need to really fine tune it, which I can use the buttons. But honestly, the knob is really precise, like surprisingly precise. So those are the geometry adjustments on the first page, but as we go deeper, we have a bunch of pin cushion adjustments here, and we also have some linearity adjustments too. And then we got some convergence adjustments on here on the third page. Now here's the thing, that's pretty cool. We love convergence adjustments. I'm personally a dynamic convergence enjoyer. And this down here, now that shit makes me fucking happy. Yeah, you've got a lot It's really impressive. Can really go to town with it. I honestly don't need to touch these, but if this thing ever starts raking in the hours, I'm not going to be screwed, and it's going to look pretty good.
I give the alignment menu a 4 out of 4.
Now, certain menus in the OSD will require a password, and the default password seems to just be 9999. So putting that in and pressing enter on that keypad section, I get these. I'm not going to touch a single one of these. Now in the status menu, it's just showing info about your channels. And on the second page, you get the name of the monitor, the serial number, and of course, our hour count, which at the time of me recording this video is at a whopping 202 hours, which clocks in at just over a week now at 8.4 days. It's still hard for me to believe that shit. And then we got the software version as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the OSD. And now we're going to get into the 1080i situation. Alright, for this demonstration, I'm going to be using the Xbox 360, so I'm just going to switch over the Extron Crosspoint right over to input 6 and drop that on the monitor. I mean, come on, I gotta show the Extron in use somehow, right? I feel like I work at fucking NASA every time I press a button on it. So on 480p, going to screen mode inside of input config, you can see I'm presented with these options here. Now going over to 1080i and selecting that on the console, quickly switches, and then you've got this. It's in 16:9. You can see there's some overscan. Obviously, I haven't fully cropped it correctly or anything like that. You might be thinking that this is connected to the fact that on the Xbox 360, it only says widescreen and I can't do standard. But this is the case if you even use like a PC and do a custom res or anything like that. And going into the OSD will further prove this point. But anyways, going to the input config section again, you also might have seen that right before I clicked on screen mode, it was at 4:3. It's just labeling it. It's acting as 16:9 normal anyways. So it's not like it's a little like bypass or anything like that. This is what I'm presented with. And if you're thinking that I can press the button on the control unit, it just does the same thing as if I was in the menu. So I guess we'll slap the mask on. There you go. Now it looks like it's a 16:9 monitor. Oh! And I thought I'd take this opportunity really quick to just show how good 1080i looks on this monitor. It's probably also because of the fact that it is letterbox, so the beam is tighter, which makes a brighter and sharper picture. But just goddamn, I mean, look how sharp this is. It just looks really, really crisp. Of course, this is assisted by the fact that the monitor is super, super low hours. And if you're curious, I'll show it off. 720p, it's not gonna work, but here we go. And sure, I'll show 1080p as well. If you've ever tried to send 480p to a 15 kHz CRT, you might be familiar with what this is doing. Yup. That's it for the 1080i stuff. And with that being said, it's now time for the last chapter, which you all know what it's gonna be. It's content time, but before we get to that, just really quick, I'm gonna go over this. If you haven't paid attention to my posts or you're new here or whatever the hell, if you've seen my previous videos, you might have noticed a considerable upgrade in quality with this one, and that is because I swapped over to DaVinci Resolve, but this software has been so much better. It's taken a little bit to learn, which is why there's been a huge gap in between this video and the previous one, but that gap hasn't been due to laziness. Of course it fucking has. But I have been dedicating a lot of that time to learning this video editor to make videos that I think are worthy of being posted. And this video is basically just the product of the skill that I have managed to accumulate during my time with the software so far. And that's going to be used towards the SMM21106LS video, because obviously a monitor of that caliber cannot have a shitty video dedicated to it. With that being said, I'll see you soon and enjoy the content montage. Bye!